Hey there, I haven't made any god roll weapon videos in a while, mainly because I'm neck deep in other crap. Believe me though, those videos are coming, but before I roll them out, I wanted to make sure I completely understood everything there was to know about the all-new weapon perks that have been added to the game. There's not a ton, only 9, but I gotta make sure I totally understand the ins and outs of each one before recommending a new god roll. I feel like that's only common sense. So with that, why don't we go over each new perk added to D2 in Beyond Light and see what makes them tick in both PvP and PvE. Starting with Dual Loader, which is pretty straightforward, can only roll on new shotguns, reloads 2 shells at a time, but cuts down on overall reload speed. The amount it takes your reload speed down is pretty harsh, -50 according to light.gg. Ouch. If you care about reload speed, well, good news, Dual Loader seems to overall be more efficient than regular reloading. Here we have a Heritage shotgun, i.e. the new one from the raid, loading faster overall with Dual Loader than via regular reloading, even with the -50 penalty. I can see how Dual Loader might be handy in situations where you desperately gotta get more shells in the gun. Maybe in PvE during a DPS phase where you've emptied the mag in your shotty but really want to get off a few more shots before DPS is over. Or in PvP if you kill an enemy and you can see on radar there's more dudes coming right at you and you really want to get 2 more shots in the mag right away. On the downside, Dual Loader has competition, and I don't mean from only reload perks. For example, if we look at all possible rolls on the Bone Chiller, if I was looking for a PvP god roll, I might be more tempted to go with Firmly Planted or Surplus if given the choice. But overall not a bad perk if you're looking for extra reload on your shotty. Let's move on to another reload perk, Reconstruction. This one's actually very handy. Your weapon auto reloads over time up to double capacity, meaning if you have a shotty that can normally hold 7 shells in the mag, give it a little bit of time and boom, you've got 14 in the mag. The auto loading happens while you're doing anything, by the way. You don't have to have the gun out. Holster the gun? Oh, it's auto-loading. Riding a sparrow? Oh baby, you know that gun is auto-loading. Only downside is that the reloading ain't exactly quick. 1 shell takes 4 seconds to load into the gun, but again, it is happening all the time without you having to worry. It's kind of like the crock pot of reload perks. Set it and forget it. Being able to go up to double capacity is kinda big. I'm mainly liking this perk for PvE right now, but I wouldn't be mad if I got it on a shotty that I liked for PvP. I don't think the double capacity would ever come into play in Crucible unless you're a god, but the auto-loading feature is pretty handy. How about a perk that's a little bit more complicated? Redirection. Damaging rank and file combatants increases damage against more powerful ones. A perk that was very clearly designed for PvE, Redirection allows you to build stacks every time you land a shot on a red bar enemy of any kind. You can gain a lot of stacks by doing this, all the way up to 20. And the great news is that those stacks will remain there with no time limit, even if you holster your weapon, until you use them by damaging either a major or boss level enemy with that same weapon. When shooting a yellow health bar enemy, your stacks will auto-spend 5 at a time. Yeah, you heard me right. 5 at a time. So if you had 20 stacks of Redirection all saved up on your primary weapon, then began shooting a yellow health bar enemy, you would only be able to pull off 4 shots of big boy damage because again, landing 1 shot eats up 5 stacks. Damage-wise, things get a little funky. While recording, I'm assuming Bungie was rounding my damage numbers as they always do because my damage calculations were just hairs off of being nice round even numbers. To keep things simple, look at it this way. Every stack of Redirection is an extra 20% damage and it caps off at 100%, meaning Redirection level 1 is plus 20%, level 2 is plus 40, level 3 is plus 60, level 4 is plus 80, and level 5 is plus 100% damage output. But Fallout, you said you could get 20 stacks. Right, you can, but Bungie caps the damage output off at 100% no matter what, meaning even at a level 20 stack, you're still doing a maximum of plus 100% damage with your bullet. So back to our example, if you were to get 20 stacks and shoot a boss 4 times, that is 4 shots capped at an extra 100% damage. Make sense? Redirection is one of the most rare new perks in the game, only appearing on 2 guns, the Raid Hand Cannon and the Raid Scout Rifle. Overall, I like it for PvE because you shoot red health bar enemies very often, you rack up stacks of Redirection pretty damn quickly. The only downside is that if you want to deal big damage to yellow health bar enemies, well, that's kind of what special and power weapons are for. Still, never hurts to have extra damage output options. And if you're wondering, no, redirection does not work in PvP, thank God. That would be wildly broken and weird, and I'm glad it's not a thing. Keep an eye on redirection. I'm waiting for the day where we can get a gun that can roll with redirection and Vorpal weapon. Let's look at another extra damage perk, Recombination. Elemental final blows increase the damage of this weapon's next shot. This perk also only rolls on 2 possible weapons, the Raid Shotgun and the Raid Sniper Rifle. Kinda hoping we get more guns in the future to take advantage of these new perks, but what are you gonna do? So here's how it works. Step A, get a bunch of final blows with whatever energy weapon you're carrying. Then step B, swap to your kinetic weapon that has Recombination on it. Pull the trigger and do a buttload of damage with 1 shot. There are 10 overall levels of Recombination you can get. Each stack gives a fair amount of extra damage, capping out at about 88-ish% in PvE. Not bad. Currently, I like this perk a little bit more than Redirection because I always naturally want to use my special weapon on big yellow health bar dudes, and Recombination complements that. Downside is that you only get 1 extra damage shot, whereas if we were to look at a perk like Vorpal Weapon, there's no charge up required, and every bullet does extra damage to boss level enemies. I should mention that Recombination also works in PvP, but because it only rolls on 2 weapons right now, both of which can already one-shot enemies in PvP by simply aiming at the head, who the cares? Granted, with Recombination, if you get to level 7 or higher, you can one-shot body kill an enemy guardian with the Heritage Shotgun. But again, if you're routinely plowing through 7 enemies at a time in PvP without anyone stopping you, I don't think you really need the extra damage output on your slug shotty from Recombination. Not to mention that sometimes Recombination is glitched in PvP and just flat out won't work at high stacks. Lol. So what I'm saying is just use it in PvE. And speaking of things to only use in PvE, let's move on to Thresh. I already made a video on Thresh alone earlier in the week because I felt like a lot of my PvP friends kinda needed to know right away that Thresh does not work in PvP. Yeah, spoiler alert, PvE only, tell a friend. To quickly recap that video, every single kill you get with your weapon that has Thresh shaves off a few extra seconds from your super meter. It helps you more if you have a lower tier intellect, but I still feel it's not only worth it, but a great PvE perk even if you're rolling around with tier 10 intellect. Not exactly flashy, but it's always working for you, and if you're running a build where you really want to whip out your super as often as you can, look no further than Thresh. Oh, and also based on the numerical data I got so far, I think that you get even more of a discount on your super timer with Thresh if you have it on a special weapon rather than a primary weapon. Or at least that's what the numbers led me to believe. If you want to watch my entire rambling / deep dive on Thresh, link to that video in the top right corner. Moving on, we got One for All. Hitting 3 separate targets improves damage output for a moderate duration. Fair amount to break down there. So yeah, first of all, you have to hit 3 different targets in order to actually trigger the perk. Although, quick note, while testing in PvP, I blatantly only hit 2 of my friends, one, then the other, then back to the first one, and that procced One for All. We tried recreating that effect though to see if it was a guaranteed workaround, but for whatever reason, we weren't able to replicate it after that first time. The trick might be to simply look at 3 different targets, but while dealing damage only to 2 back and forth. I don't know, too much effort, but for right now, just assume you always gotta hit 3 different targets to proc the perk. Oh, and you have a 3-second window to continue proccing the perk, by the way, meaning if you shoot target A, you now have 3 seconds to find and damage another target, and then 3 more seconds to find and damage another. When you've shot all 3, One for All will activate, and then you have a 33-ish% extra damage output for both PvE and PvP. Not bad. It's kind of like Kill Clip, but you don't need to kill anything in order to trigger the perk. Lengthwise, when activated, One for All has a 9-second window. Well, actually, if you want to get technical, it's a 10-second window. The timer on your HUD does say 9, but the perk doesn't die when the timer goes from 1 to 0. It lingers around for a full second from 0 to disappearing, hence technically a 10-second window. Not a bad perk, kinda weird you have to target multiple enemies, but definitely designed for PvE. TBH, the 10-second window is kinda the only thing keeping me from saying, Yeah, but Rampage though. One thing Rampage has over One for All, however, is that every time you get a kill on a weapon with Rampage, you refresh the timer on Rampage. There's no way to refresh One for All outside of reactivating the perk all over again. Use it in PvE, enjoy the 10-second window, not ideal in PvP. Next up, we got Surplus. Increase handling, reload, and stability for each fully charged ability, meaning your grenade, your melee, and your class ability. Think of it this way, each of those 3 abilities is 1 stack of Surplus, so if you've got all 3 of them charged, you've got a level 3 stack of Surplus. If you only got 1 of those abilities fully charged, just 1 stack. Because stability can be wildly hard to measure due to a lack of consistency and a fair amount of RNG, 2 things that I hate, I went ahead and measured each stack of Surplus visually by comparing reload speed. Overall, you can see there's a big difference in weapon performance at Surplus level 3 when compared to level 0. Depending on your gun and how much you value handling, reload, and stability, this could be a highly ranked perk in PvP, where I feel it was designed to be used. Stars in Shadow and Hailing Confusion in particular can benefit greatly from the extra stability, especially if you play on controller. Handling-wise, pretty much any weapon would appreciate the bootleg version of Quick Draw offered by Surplus, and even though better reload ain't very sexy in PvP, it is always appreciated. Overall, it depends on the gun, but the right weapon becomes way better with Surplus. It's a good perk in PvP, do not sleep on it. Next up, we have Wellspring, kind of the yin to Surplus's yang. Whereas Surplus encourages you to hold on to your abilities to make your weapon perform better, Wellspring encourages you to spam your abilities because kills with Wellspring regen those abilities. And yeah, I said abilities as in all 3, nade, melee, and class. Here's how it works. Every kill gives you a better cooldown on each, briefly, and it's evenly divided between any of your abilities currently on recharge. If all 3 of your abilities are recharging, all 3 abilities get a small cooldown buff, but if you only have 1 ability on recharge and the other 2 are full, your 1 ability that's recharging gets a much better cooldown buff. You see what I'm saying? You never have to worry about maximizing the efficiency of Wellspring on all your abilities because it's always evenly divided among however many of your abilities are currently recharging. Much like Thresh, Wellspring is more generous to your ability cooldowns if you're at a lower tier for that ability. For example, Wellspring gives you a stronger buff to your grenade recharge rate if you're at a tier 0 discipline when compared to a tier 10. And even though we're looking at just a few extra seconds added at a time, Wellspring overall is a great weapon perk, especially if you're playing a class that focuses on hard ability spam. Several of the new stasis classes immediately come to mind. Wellspring can roll on 8 weapons, one of them not currently in the game, but tiny spoiler alert for the next 5 seconds, cover your ears now, that 8th weapon will be entering the loot pool this week via Iron Banner. Finally, we have Chain Reaction, and thankfully there's not a ton to look into or explain here. Chain Reaction is essentially the dragonfly of power weapons. Get a kill with your grenade launcher or rocket launcher, Chain Reaction takes that kill and makes the body explode. Bingo. If you're interested in having a primo trash-killing, room-clearing power weapon, Chain Reaction might be for you. You're pretty much doubling the bang for your buck in the explosion department. The more enemies nearby and clumped together, the more elemental explosions resulting from Chain Reaction. All good things. And there you go, every new perk in Beyond Light with plenty of examples and data to back them all up. Hope you found that mildly enlightening, and hope you have a better idea of what guns to keep and what guns to throw away if you've been hoarding since Beyond Light dropped. Now that we've got all the new perks covered, expect to see plenty of new God Roll videos dropping in the near future. If you have a weapon that you'd really like to see featured first, let me know what weapon that is down below in the comment section. And while you're down there, please click the like button if you enjoyed today's video, really helps my channel out. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and help me with my humble goal of one day ruling the world. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.